Wagyu Gaming. Hey there broskies, hope you're having a wonderful day. So Wagyu here and back with another Kingdom of Heroes Tactics War video. So today we're gonna talk about the best 4-star debuffers per element. And so there's going to be 5, the dark, light, fire, tree, and water. And we're gonna be doing 1 each, okay? But before we begin, a little bit of disclaimer that this is not an exhaustive list, and if your unit, your favorite debuffer, isn't going to be mentioned here, then that's okay. Do leave a comment in the comment section below so I'll be informed more about the unit. This is basically my list of top debuffers for each element, okay? And alongside this, before we begin as well, we'll talk about what I consider to be the best debuffers in game. So first of all, we're gonna talk about some of the debuffs that we can mention here. So as I played through the game, I'm currently level 101 and I've cleared almost majority contents of the game. So what I found useful throughout my gameplay was basically reduced speed, this skill, alongside reduced defense. So we're only talking about the debuffs, we're not going to be talking about the buffs. So yeah, reduced speed, reduced defense, alongside some heal block. And sometimes, like for Toa Hard, we can talk about stun, but we'll not consider this since it's not really going to be useful for our F2P friends here at Wagyu Gaming. So alongside this, other effects that can be used or considered as debuff will be the reduced action gauge alongside remove buff or debuff, okay? So now that we've established that, again, the important ones are reduced speed, reduced defense, and reduced action gauge alongside remove buff or debuff, okay? So now that we've established that, we'll begin with our units in the list. First of all, we'll begin with the dark units since a lot of the dark units are actually quite OP in debuffing. So I feel that the best unit here for debuffing is actually Apophis, okay? So as you can see, let me explain why. As I mentioned here, actually in my main account before, I really found that Apophis was quite OP and he's one of my favorite units, and he was one of the first Nat 4 L&D unit that I've got, okay? So why is he very useful? He's going to be useful in majority of your speedruns for Fafnir B11 alongside Sealed Armory. Personally, I built Apophis 6-star maxed out and really high speed, like around 200, and high accuracy since he's my main debuffer, and here's why. So first of all, check this skill out. So Afflicting Breath, it has defense break alongside a reduced speed, so meaning the enemy takes less turns. And if you level it up more, the effect duration goes up from 2 turns up to 3 turns, so which I already have. And alongside this, if it levels up by 1, it reduces the cooldown by 1/3, so making it 4-turn cooldown only. Considering he has high speed, he basically takes 2 turns every time the boss takes a turn, okay? So this is a very fast cooldown. Alongside this, he also has a team-wide increased attack from his leader skill, and it's 36% for dungeon battles, okay? So that's going to be really useful if you're trying to speed clear everything. Alongside this, he also has reduced enemy action gauge if they have the decreased speed debuff, as you can see here from this skill. So successful hits. Additionally, if the target has a speed debuff, successful hits reduce the action gauge of all enemies by 15%. Alongside that, successful hits remove the same number of active buffs as the number of active debuffs on the target, okay? Up to 3 buffs. So quite useful. So basically a buff remove. So last but not the least, he also has a reduced speed on his first skill, which has very high accuracy as far as I have experienced, okay? So this is Apophis, and he's basically the best dark unit for debuffing. Next on the list, we'll talk about the light units, and the light units aren't really that popular at debuffing. They're more of, support, as you can see here. But there's actually one light unit that I found quite useful, and one very close runner-up. But personally, I chose Tesla as the best debuffer for 4-star light unit, and here's why. So aside from having debuffs, as you can see here, all of her skills, aside from skill 3, has debuffs. So she also has a team-wide shield very similar to Titania. And Titania is one of the top units in game right now, as far as I can tell. I don't have her personally, although I want one. Hopefully I get her in the next Spirit Stone summons. But yeah, she has very similar skill. Like additionally, you and your allies gain a shield for 5% of max HP for 1 turn. Okay, so that's gonna be quite useful. Alongside this, she has a stun. So successful hits by Tesla stuns the enemy for 1 turn. And the good thing about this is you're not going to be needing that much of a earthquake runes since she already has this. And she also has a knockback in her skill 1 as far as I remember. Yeah, knocking them back by 1 tile. And it also has provoke, so that's going to be quite useful. And she also has reduced speed alongside reduced action gauge. Okay, so she has everything that we need aside from defense break. Although she scales with defense, so she's going to be quite tanky. So that's another plus for Tesla. Okay, so that's Tesla for you guys. Next on the list, so we're going to fire. We're gonna be saving tree last since there are so many tree units that are very good at debuffing. So we'll save that for last. So next we'll proceed with fire. So the fire unit I've listed here is Vesta. I used her when I was really just starting out in the game, and she really brought me far in terms of the story content, but after that she fell off when I started getting better units. But anyway, here are her skills. So she has the glancing hit increase for enemies, which is really useful in order for you to survive the boss fights. And alongside this, she has some heal and debuff immunity in her kit. And last but not the least, of course, the reduced speed. So as far as I mentioned, I really value things that reduce speed or reduce action gauge, because this actually means that your units will take more turns rather than your enemies taking a turn. So that's why I value this so much, like the decreased speed. And alongside this, she has this passive buff for herself though. So she gains an increased defense and continuous recovery for 1 turn if her HP falls below 60%. Okay, so there were other units that were really close to Vesta. Now I'll just mention it for, you know, in order for you guys to be more informed. I haven't personally used them, but as far as I can tell from their kit, they are going to be quite useful. So one of them was Vulcan. He has continuous damage in his first skill. He has provoke in his second, and he has a defense break on his third. And he also has a leader skill, although only for fire attribute units, but yeah, still useful. So basically, I like him because he has defense break and alongside flaming hammer, okay, which has a continuous damage in its kit. So yeah, another one was Sienna. Sienna is actually a really good defense breaker, and she has actually high damage potential because she has increased crit damage, and if you level her skills up more, it increases even further. Alongside this, she has a passive skill that increases her crit rate by 20%, which can be leveled up to level 5. As you can see here, do let me know in the comment section below if the increased stats plus 6% means that it increases the crit rate by 6% increase, or does it mean that it increases her stats by 6%? Okay, do let me know in the comment section below. And if you awaken her, she also gets a leader skill, which is 28% increased speed for fire attribute units. So basically, yeah, it increases your team speed. So she has 2 defense breaks on her first skill and her second skill, as you can see here. So yeah, she comes to a close second or third between Vulcan, Sienna, and Vesta. So Sienna and Vulcan I haven't really used, but Vesta I've used personally. So just a disclosure. So next on the list, we'll talk about the tree units. I mean the water units. We'll save the tree for last, as I mentioned. So the tree units. So basically, the unit I chose here is the water form of Theia, who I've named the Towa normal MVP. So there were quite a few units that were decent here, but none came close to Valkyrie. Valkyrie is number 1 on my list since I value continuous damage as well for boss fights, and I'm more of a PvE person, just so you guys, if you guys haven't figured that out yet. So I want you guys to really understand that majority of my insights are coming from the PvE aspect of the game. So as you can see here, he has continuous damage in his first skill, and he also has continuous damage in her second skill, and she basically lands them all the time. This one also has increased accuracy by 20%, which makes it land even higher. Okay, so alongside this, she has an increased attack for herself and a team-wide increased speed with water attribute units by 16%, which can be leveled up to, as you can see here, 28%. Okay, so Yeah, I call her the water Theia, and she's going to be really useful for like fire type bosses like the Ifrit, Toa boss or whatnot. Okay, and there was a unit that came very close second, so she's not much of a debuffer, but more of a action gauge manager, if you must. An action gauge unit that reduces action gauge of the enemy units. So that was Media, and she's actually one of the better farmers in the game, one of the best farmers, not better. So yeah, Media. So as you can see here, this one is very useful. Media's attack will always have an advantage over the target's element, and alongside this, she reduces action gauge by 10% if she hits a unit, and she has even more reduced action gauge, as you can see here in her first skill, which as I mentioned, I really value. Okay, alongside this, she reduces their mobility for 1 turn if their action gauge falls below 50%. Okay, so Media came a really close second as well. Okay, last but not the least, we're gonna be talking about the tree type units, and this is where it gets interesting. A lot of these units actually have really good debuffs. Majority of them do, but I've narrowed it down. I'm skipping Theia since I'm sure everyone knows by now that Theia is actually one of the best units in game for debuffing in terms of continuous damage. Like, she basically throws everything back at the enemy if she gets debuffs. Okay, but although she has a very situational use in Toa, but she is actually one of the better debuffers in game. So let's talk about the other units that are very good here in Tree, and I think we'll be spending a bit of time here. So basically, it's going to be Lucifer, one of the top units in terms of debuffing. He has everything from lower speed to stun to glancing hit and to continuous damage. So he basically has everything in this kit. Personally, he's going to be one of the next few units I'm going to be building in terms of priority, since I found him to be very useful in a lot of contents in Toa normal. And although I don't have a hard time clearing Toa normal, I think I can be more efficient about it. So yeah, Lucifer might help me with that, and I'll let you guys know more about it when I personally built up Lucifer into a good level and with good experience. But yeah, just looking at his kit, he actually has a really good kit. As you can see here, he has all the debuffs I want except for defense break. I'm just doubting whether he has the reduced action gauge. Yeah, he also doesn't have it, but having glancing hit, increased glancing hit, gives your team a better chance to survive boss fights. Okay, so Lucifer is one of the best units for tree type in order for debuffing alongside Lucifer. So Charlotte is the next. She's actually one of the best debuffers in game. Like, look at the review. Look at it here. Blocks healing, the most toxic debuffer ever. So she's actually a pretty good debuffer since she has defense break alongside action gauge reduction, I believe. No, reduced defense and speed. Reduced defense and reduced speed. So he's basically the Apophis of the tree type units, and she's going to be quite useful if you're trying to clear an F2P team with Fafnir B11. So she's going to be one of those units you can use. So alongside this, she blocks buffs for the enemy, and last but not the least, she has heal block. Okay, so she's going to be quite useful for Fafnir B11, and she's actually one of the best debuffers in game. Oh yeah, I was right. She actually reduces the action gauge of enemies by 15% for her second skill, so that's going to be quite useful. And her damage scales more the more debuffs the enemy has. Okay, so do take note of this for her first skill. So before doing this first skill, land every debuff that she has, so she gets to deal more damage. Okay, so another unit I was checking out in the tree type units is actually Bonnie. Like, look at her kit. She actually has a defense break alongside a stun, and I believe she has an action gauge reduction. Yeah, successful hits reduce the action gauge of enemies hit by 20% and has a 60% chance to stun the enemy for 1 turn. If the enemy hit has a speed debuff, there is a 100% chance to stun them. Okay, so quite useful. Alongside this, she has an increased base speed by 16. That's really high. And if the enemies hit by Bonnie has their action gauge below 60%, successful hits reduce their speed for 2 turns. So yeah, creating more opportunities for your team. So last but not the least, she has a defense break, and yeah, the skills damage increase. She scales with speed, Okay, so last but not the least, she has her normal attack, which is the skill's damage increases the greater speed you have. If the target has a speed debuff, then spray and praise cooldown is reduced by 1 turn. So that's this one, giving you more opportunity to defense break the enemy. So yeah, that was it for the 3 type units. There's actually more here. Let's not just go through it since it's going to take quite some time. But yeah, that's it for this video. And if you do have any questions, or if you do have any other suggestions for your favorite debuffer, do let me know in the comment section below, and I'll always welcome your ideas and thoughts, and I'll reply to you guys as usual. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next video.